Have you ever felt like you're walking through life carrying a secret no one else can see? Like there's something inside you, ancient, powerful, undeniable, that doesn't quite belong to this world. It's not something you can prove. It's not something you can explain. But it's there. And the older you get, the louder it becomes. It's not anxiety. It's not overthinking. It's awareness, an inner pulse whispering that your soul carries something rare, something sacred, something chosen. While others chase trends and distractions, you keep returning to that deep, silent space within you that says, you're not here to fit in. You're here to remember. You're here to awaken. There's a reason the world has never felt quite right to you. A reason you've always sensed that something invisible is guiding your life in ways no one around you seems to notice. From a young age, you could tell when people were lying, even when they smiled. You could feel the atmosphere in a room shift before a single word was spoken. You've always known when something important was coming, even if you couldn't say how. And every time you tried to bring this up, they told you you were imagining things, being dramatic, too sensitive. But deep down, you knew they were wrong. They just didn't feel what you felt. You've always been different, but not in the way people think. Not weird, not broken, not out of place. Just other. As if your soul remembers something the world has forgotten. You could sense meaning in moments others found meaningless. You could look at the stars and feel like something, or someone, was watching back. You knew your thoughts weren't just passing by. They were touching something, shaping something. While others sought to escape themselves, you were seeking to become who you truly are. Even when you didn't have the words for it, something in you refused to settle, refused to numb out, refused to forget. And this is the truth. You didn't choose to be different. You were born that way. Because some souls were marked long before they arrived here. Marked not with status or titles or appearance, but with frequency, with purpose, with memory. The memory that this world is not all there is. That the chaos we see is just the surface, and beneath it is something deeply ordered, intelligent, loving. That you're not just a person navigating life. You are consciousness incarnated. You are awareness having a human experience. And when you carry that awareness, even in the smallest way, you carry the first signature of the chosen. But the strangest thing about being marked is how easy it is to forget. You start life pure, sensitive, tuned in, and then slowly, the world begins to shape you, telling you what's real, what's logical, what's possible. It tells you to stop dreaming, to grow up, to be realistic. And piece by piece, you begin to doubt what you once knew so clearly, until something happens, maybe a breakdown, a heartbreak, a spiritual awakening, and suddenly that old feeling returns, like a knock on the door of your soul, and it says, remember, remember who you are, remember what you came here to do. The chosen ones are never told they're chosen. They're tested, they're challenged, they're broken open. Life strips away the distractions until only the truth remains. And that truth is this: you have always been different because you were never meant to live like everyone else. Your path was never meant to be ordinary. You were never meant to blindly follow. You were meant to lead, not with power, not with force, but with frequency, with presence, with truth. And if any part of this is resonating with something deep inside you, then that resonance is the mark. That's the code waking up inside you. That's the first ripple of remembrance, and it's only the beginning. You see, the people who carry this mark often go through life wondering why everything feels so loud, so chaotic, so fake, why they can't stand small talk, why they feel more at home in silence, in nature, in dreams. They're constantly searching for something: truth, depth, connection, and they won't settle until they find it. But here's what most of them never realize. The thing they've been searching for out there is already inside them. They are the portal. They are the path. They are the message and the messenger. That feeling of being out of place is not a flaw. It's a signal. It's a spiritual compass pointing inward, urging you to stop looking outside and start awakening the knowledge already seeded in your soul. And once you begin listening, truly listening, you realize you've been carrying these sacred codes all along. Codes that separate you from the crowd, that align you with truth, that connect you to something greater than logic, greater than systems, greater than time. You weren't meant to understand this from the start. You were meant to remember it when the time was right. And if you're still here, still listening, then the time is now. That's the first mark. But the second is even more mysterious, because it's not about what you know. It's about what others feel the moment you enter a room. You've probably seen it. A child staring at you from across the room, unblinking. A dog quietly walking over to sit beside you like it's known you for lifetimes. A stranger opening up to you without knowing why. These aren't random events. They're echoes. Echoes of the truth your energy silently broadcasts without a single word. And only the purest beings, those not yet tangled in ego or fear, can feel it clearly. It doesn't matter what you wear, what you say, or what you do. Your frequency speaks. It announces something rare, something ancient, something sacred. And the ones who are still connected to that sacred space within themselves, they hear it, they feel it. That's why they're drawn to you. It's why children smile or stare or laugh around you. Why animals instantly trust you. It's because your very presence is a soft reminder of home. This kind of resonance can't be taught. It can't be faked. It's not about charisma. Charisma performs. Frequency just is. And when your energy vibrates in alignment with truth, peace, and authenticity, those who still remember those vibrations recognize you instantly, even if they don't know why. And sometimes the opposite happens. Some people feel uncomfortable around you, not because you're dangerous, but because your energy exposes what they've hidden. Your presence acts like a mirror, showing them what's in harmony and what's not. And this isn't something you do consciously, you just are. And who you are challenges what they pretend to be. It can feel isolating, confusing, even painful. But it's not your job to dim your light to make others comfortable. It's your task to shine, so that those still trapped in the dark have something to orient toward. If you've ever wondered why certain people react to you with instant openness or instant discomfort, this is why. You carry a field that speaks before your voice ever does. And this field isn't just energy. It's remembrance. It's activation. It's a signal to those still asleep, a reminder that something more is possible. This is the second spiritual mark, the mark of resonance, the mark of presence, the mark that tells the world something sacred walks here. And if that's you already know it. There's something you've always felt, even if you couldn't name it. A kind of inner radar, a feeling before the facts. It shows up when you're walking into a room and suddenly feel a shift in the air, like something unseen is swirling around you. You don't see anything, but your skin tightens, your heart picks up, and you just know something isn't right. Or maybe the opposite happens. You meet someone for the first time, and within seconds, your soul says yes, even though your mind doesn't understand why. You've tried to explain this to others, but they don't always get it. They ask, "What gave you that idea?" Or, "Where's the proof?" But that's the thing, there isn't proof. Not the kind they're looking for. Because this isn't about logic, it's about frequency. It's about vibration. It's about the unseen world speaking to you in a language most people have forgotten how to hear. This ability isn't something you picked up in school. It didn't come from books or teachers. It was always with you. It's a built-in awareness, a spiritual alert system that warns you, guides you, and sometimes even protects you from what your eyes can't see. You might not have realized it at the time, but that moment you avoided a situation that ended up going terribly wrong for others. That wasn't chance. That was your intuition pulling you out of the fire. That was the signal lighting up before the storm hit. And it doesn't always make sense. Sometimes your logic says yes, but your gut screams no. And if you're like most chosen ones, you've learned, maybe the hard way, that your gut is never wrong. That quiet, subtle nudge you used to ignore. That is the voice of higher awareness. People with this spiritual mark don't just see what's happening, they feel what's coming. They read between the lines, beneath the words, beyond the masks people wear. You may have noticed you can pick up on people's true feelings even when they're trying to hide them. You can sense dishonesty even if someone's being polite. You can feel tension in a room even if no one's fighting. It's not about paranoia. It's energetic literacy. You're reading the field, the frequency, the vibration. And while others are looking at faces, you're watching energy. You feel when someone's smiling through pain. You sense when something is off, even if everyone around you says it's fine. You may not know what is about to happen, but you know something is. And more often than not, you're right. This sensitivity is not weakness. It's spiritual intelligence. It's ancient technology encoded in your soul. But here's the challenge. When you live with this kind of sensitivity, the world doesn't always feel safe. It feels loud, overwhelming. You pick up on too much. Crowds drain you. Certain places make your skin crawl. And you've probably been told more than once to stop being so dramatic or to toughen up. But those people don't understand that you're not being emotional. You're receiving data. You're processing signals they can't even perceive. You're not overreacting. You're responding to an invisible truth. The irony is, those who carry this mark often try to silence it, to push it down, to fit in. Because it's easier to ignore the whisper than to face being different. But the moment you begin to trust that whisper, everything changes. You stop forcing yourself into places that don't feel right. You stop second-guessing your inner warnings. And suddenly, life flows differently. Because when you walk in alignment with your inner truth, the universe aligns with you. Opportunities start showing up where you once felt blocked. People start falling away, people who were never meant to walk your path. And new ones arrive, souls who speak your language without words. This mark sharpens with time. The more you listen, the louder it becomes. And eventually, it's no longer a whisper. It becomes your compass, your navigation system, your truth detector. You begin to walk not by sight, but by resonance. And you realize the world has been backwards all along, trusting only what it can see, while ignoring the signals that guide us from within. The gift is rare, but with it comes responsibility, because once you can feel what others don't, you can't pretend not to. You can't unknow. You can't unfeel. You become the person who speaks up first, who walks away first, who senses the danger no one else notices. And yes, that can be lonely. You may lose friends. You may be called overly sensitive, or strange, or intense. But eventually, you realize that you weren't made to be understood by everyone. You were made to be aligned with truth, with energy, with your higher self. The physical world will try to pull you into its logic. It will try to convince you that if you can't explain it, it's not real. But you'll know better. Because your body speaks. Your heart races for a reason. That gut twist, that chill down your spine, that tightness in your chest. Those are messages. Sacred messages from your intuitive field. And when you start honoring those signals instead of silencing them, life opens in ways you never thought possible. Eventually, this inner guidance becomes your greatest ally. You'll look back at all the times you ignored it and realize those were your detours, your delays. But every time you trusted it, something divine happened. You were protected, redirected, guided, and the more you trust, the stronger it gets. That's the paradox. The more you act on intuition, the more your intuition speaks. And that's not just a gift. That's evolution. That's spiritual awakening. That's the chosen frequency. And then something else begins to happen. Something deeper. Because when you start trusting your own inner signals, you stop relying on external ones. You don't need signs. You are the sign. You become so tuned in that your very existence begins to move in harmony with unseen forces. And that's when you begin to see just how powerful this first spiritual mark truly is. But now we move into the second layer, the emotional and physical cost of carrying such sensitivity in a world not designed for it. Because when you sense everything, you feel everything. And when you feel everything, you carry more than most. You may have noticed that certain places feel heavy, as if the air itself is weighed down, or that after talking to certain people, you feel drained, even if they were smiling. This is your energy field doing what it was designed to do, receive. But receiving without boundaries leads to burnout. And this is the part of the gift that most people don't talk about, the burden. To feel is to be vulnerable. And when you're constantly absorbing what others can't even recognize, you start to question if it's you that's the problem. You start to think maybe you're just too emotional, too complicated, too broken. But you're not. You're just tuned in. So deeply tuned in that the static of this world hits you like noise. And unless you learn to protect your energy, that noise can drown out your inner voice. So you start to create space. You find yourself pulling away from the chaos. You become more selective with who you spend time with. You stop explaining your decisions. And you begin to realize peace isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. Because your peace is your power. It's where your clarity lives. And in a world that thrives on distraction, the ability to stay connected to your inner truth becomes your superpower. And the more you protect that truth, the more you'll find it guiding you with precision. You'll be led to the right places, the right people, the right paths. All because you've finally stopped doubting what you feel. You've stopped making yourself wrong for being different. You've stopped looking for validation from people who were never meant to understand your vibration. This isn't just about intuition. It's about alignment. It's about embodiment. It's about remembering that you were never meant to walk through life numb and disconnected. You were meant to feel, to perceive, to awaken. You were meant to navigate through unseen currents, not because you need to escape reality, but because you're here to reshape it. And that journey begins the moment you stop apologizing for the way you see and feel the world. Because the truth is, you were never too sensitive. You were just always aware. And that awareness is your gift. That awareness is your power. That awareness is your mark. There's something extraordinary that happens when you enter a room, not because of what you say or what you wear, but because of what you carry. You've likely noticed it, though maybe you haven't fully understood why. The glance of a child that lingers a little too long, a baby staring into your eyes, calm and focused, as if they see something the adults around them can't. A dog walking past everyone else only to sit beside you, like it's found its home. A cat curling up at your feet, even though they're usually distant. It happens again and again. And while the world around you brushes it off as coincidence, deep down, you know better. You can feel it. That quiet pull, that silent magnetism that you never ask for and never control. That's the second spiritual mark of the chosen ones, and it's one of the most sacred. It's not about how you act. It's about how you resonate. Your presence carries a frequency that only pure souls, like children and animals, can feel clearly. Unlike adults who have learned to lie to themselves and filter their instincts through logic, these beings still remember. They live close to the veil, unburdened by fear, unshaped by expectation. They don't analyze, they feel. And when they feel you, they don't question what they sense. They simply move toward it or away from it. If they stay near you, if they seek your presence, if they gaze at you with curious stillness, it's because your energy speaks to something ancient in them. You don't have to smile. You don't have to engage. You don't even have to notice. Your field is doing all the talking. It radiates a type of coherence that others have forgotten how to embody. A spiritual signature that says, this is a safe place. This is truth. This is home. And it's not just safety, it's recognition. On some level, these beings recognize your frequency as something familiar. You remind them of something they can't name but deeply know. You reflect a kind of purity they're still connected to. You echo something divine. And the more you grow in awareness, the stronger this presence becomes. You begin to notice it even more. Strangers smile at you without knowing why. People gravitate toward you in silence. Some are drawn in, others become uncomfortable, even defensive, because your very presence mirrors back to them what's out of alignment in their own field. You don't try to heal anyone, but somehow they feel lighter when they're around you, or they feel exposed. That's because your energy acts like a mirror, gentle but unrelenting. It reflects exactly what is, without judgment. You may not have realized this before, but your presence alone is a type of medicine. You don't need to say the right thing or do anything at all. Just being around you begins to shift people's energy. And it's not something you consciously chose. It's something you were born with, something your soul agreed to carry before you arrived here. That energy signature you emit is the result of your alignment. And the more you align with your truth, your peace, your purpose, the more powerful your presence becomes. This is why people open up to you without knowing why. Why they tell you their life stories within minutes. Why they cry in front of you after years of holding it together. Why they say things like, "I don't know why I'm telling you this." It's because their soul recognizes the frequency of safety and truth in you, and their defenses drop. Their masks fall off. They feel seen, heard, held, maybe for the first time in years. You didn't ask for it. You didn't even try. It's not something you can turn on or off. It simply is. That's the quiet power of the chosen ones. Energy that heals without effort. And yet, this power comes with its own weight. Because just as the purest souls are drawn to you, others are unsettled. Some will feel exposed in your presence, even if you say nothing. Some will project their insecurities onto you. Some will feel judged, even if all you did was be. That's the paradox of carrying such a high frequency in a low-frequency world. You will be loved deeply by some, and misunderstood completely by others. You'll experience both connection and rejection in ways that don't seem to make sense. But the truth is, both are reflections of your power. One sees you and moves closer. The other sees themselves through you and pulls away. And neither is your fault. You're not here to please. You're here to resonate. This kind of resonance isn't learned. It can't be mimicked. It's not about performance. It's not about social charm or playing a role. Those things can impress minds, but what you carry moves souls. And you might not see the impact you have, but it's real. Your presence alone has changed people. You've calmed storms in others without saying a word. You've anchored chaos. You've made someone feel safe enough to begin their own healing. And maybe they never told you. Maybe they couldn't. But it happened. You don't have to witness the fruit to know the seed was planted. You were the spark. And for the chosen, that's enough. So if you've ever wondered why people are drawn to you, or why they avoid you, why children light up when you smile, or why animals gravitate toward your presence like a magnet, now you understand. It's the second mark, the mark of resonance. It's the living, breathing, unspoken truth that follows you everywhere you go. And whether you realize it or not, your energy is speaking long before you ever say a word. But this resonance doesn't just affect others, it transforms you. Because the more you feel what your energy can do, the more responsibility you begin to feel for how you move through the world. You stop needing to chase attention. You stop craving validation. You realize you don't need to say much, because your presence is already doing the work. And once you embrace that, something profound begins to happen. Silence becomes sacred. Stillness becomes powerful. You stop feeling the need to prove who you are, because your energy has already spoken. And those meant to hear it, they always will. You begin to notice that your energy walks into the room before you do. That long before you speak, people have already decided how they feel around you. You realize that your impact isn't in your actions, it's in your alignment. And the more aligned you are with your higher self, the more magnetic you become. Not in a loud way, not in a look at me kind of way, but in the quiet, steady way that turns heads and softens hearts and shifts rooms without effort. That's the power you carry. And if you've ever doubted it, ask yourself this: why do the purest beings always see you? Because they can feel what others can't. They remember what the world has forgotten. And they are drawn to those who carry the same ancient truth. You are one of those carriers. And this is only the beginning. There's a moment in your journey when everything starts to shift. Not because your outer world suddenly changed, but because something clicked within you. It's subtle at first. A thought appears in your mind, vivid and full of emotion, and before you can dismiss it, life begins to respond. Not in a vague, symbolic way, but literally. Something you imagined, something you obsessed over, something you couldn't stop thinking about, shows up. A conversation, an opportunity, a person, a number, a sign. And you tell yourself it must be a coincidence, but the feeling lingers. Because deep down, you know it wasn't random. It was you. You thought it, and then it happened. That's not magic. That's the third spiritual mark. The mark of mental creation. A mind so aligned with the universal field that it doesn't just observe reality, it shapes it. This isn't just about manifesting in the trendy sense. This is something far deeper, older, more sacred. Chosen ones have a unique connection to the energetic blueprint behind reality itself. You don't just daydream, you transmit. Your thoughts aren't just private, they're instructions. And every time you focus on something with clarity, emotion, and repetition, you're sending a signal into the unseen, calling it into form. This is why your life has always seemed to mirror your inner state so precisely. When you're anxious, things unravel. When you're focused, doors open. When you deeply believe something is yours, it finds its way to you. And it's not just about desire, it's about vibration. You attract what matches your frequency, and your frequency is shaped by your most consistent thoughts. Most people think reality is solid, fixed, unchangeable. But you've always known better. You've felt how fluid it is, how responsive, how alive. You've seen the connection between what you feel and what unfolds. And even if you didn't understand it fully, you knew you weren't just reacting to life. You were somehow co-writing it. That's the power of this mark. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's quiet, but unstoppable. It's the realization that your mind isn't just a tool for thinking, it's a portal, a bridge, a frequency generator that links thought and form. Have you ever had a thought you couldn't shake, only for it to become real days or weeks later? Maybe you visualized a moment and then walked straight into it. Maybe you imagined the worst, and it happened. Or maybe you felt something amazing coming, and without effort, it arrived. These aren't coincidences, these are confirmations. Your reality bends in response to what you continuously hold in your field. The universe doesn't judge the thought, it simply responds, like a mirror. like a canvas, like a servant following your commands, whether you gave them consciously or not. This is why your thoughts are sacred, why your imagination is a sacred tool, not a toy, why you've been called to master your inner world before you can ever fully master your outer one. Because the truth is, chosen ones are creators, whether they know it or not. You are always manifesting, always transmitting, always shaping. And the only real question is, are you doing it with awareness? The most dangerous thing about this gift is forgetting you have it. Living life on autopilot, repeating negative beliefs, recycling fear, projecting doubt, and unknowingly feeding energy into the very things you don't want. This mark demands responsibility. You can't afford to think carelessly. You can't afford to marinate in low frequencies. Not because you're being punished, but because your power is real. Your thoughts are building blocks, and if you don't choose them, they'll choose you. But here's the beauty. Once you become aware of this truth, you begin to walk differently. You begin to observe your inner world the same way you observe your outer one. You start to curate your thoughts. You start to hold visions of the life you want, not as fantasies, but as blueprints. You feel into them. You act in alignment with them. And slowly, steadily, your world begins to match. It's not about forcing. It's not about manipulating. It's about tuning, like a radio signal. The clearer you broadcast, the more precise the reception. And when your mind, heart, and soul are in harmony, creation becomes inevitable. This is why some chosen ones experience extremes. Great highs and deep lows. Rapid ascents followed by sudden crashes. It's not random. It's a reflection of their mental state. When you're aligned, miracles feel normal. When you're lost, everything falls apart. Your mind is the command center of your reality, and every thought is a prayer. Whether you believe in prayer or not, your thoughts are speaking to the field, asking, attracting, and shaping with every breath. And the field is listening, always listening. This is why becoming conscious is non-negotiable, not just conscious of the world, but of yourself, of your beliefs, your inner dialogue, your recurring stories, because those are the ingredients your reality is built from. And once you truly see this, once you understand that your power isn't in trying harder, but in thinking better, you stop wasting energy on what doesn't serve you. You start choosing your thoughts like you choose your food, your friends, your future. And it doesn't mean you never doubt. It doesn't mean you never struggle. But it means you learn how to redirect, how to stop feeding fear, how to water the seeds of joy, clarity, abundance, even before they bloom, especially before they bloom. That's the true power of this mark. To believe before there's evidence. To speak life into things still unseen. To know that every thought you plant, if nourished, will eventually grow. And the more you live from that place, the more magical life becomes. You no longer see yourself as a victim of random chance. You become the observer, the sculptor, the dreamer who turns thoughts into things. You begin to trust the delays, to see meaning in the detours, to feel the universe responding not to your wishes, but to your frequency. And you begin to rise, not through effort, but through awareness, through inner alignment, through deliberate thought. So if you've noticed that your thoughts come alive, that your inner world bleeds into the outer one, that your imagination is somehow touching reality, you're not imagining it. You're witnessing the third mark at work. And if that's you, then you're being called to step into a higher level of power. A sacred responsibility to guide your mind, like the force of nature it truly is. Because when a chosen one thinks, the universe listens. There comes a point on the path, usually after the chaos, the heartbreaks, the constant searching, where something inside you quietly begins to settle. Not because life has gotten easier, but because you have started to see with different eyes. You begin to realize that you're not just reacting to life anymore. You're responding from a place of deeper awareness. You're no longer trying to force yourself into boxes that don't fit, into conversations that don't matter, or into environments that drain your soul. You're not trying to keep up, impress, or prove anything. Why? Because something profound has awakened inside you. The realization that you are not here to conform. You are here to live in alignment with your essence. You are here to embody truth, not imitate it. And that realization marks the beginning of your life as a conscious, chosen one. At first, this transition feels strange. You begin to pull away from people, from habits, from routines that once felt comfortable. You find yourself craving silence more than noise, truth more than popularity, peace more than attention. The things that once excited you now feel empty. The conversations you used to tolerate now feel unbearable. It's not that you've become antisocial, it's that you've become selective. Your energy is precious. Your time is sacred. You're no longer willing to waste either. And that's because you've started to live from your center. You're no longer seeking life from the outside in. You're creating it from the inside out. You begin to see how the world operates, how so many people are asleep, repeating loops, chasing validation, numbing their intuition, silencing their hearts. And for a moment it might make you feel alone. But then it hits you. You were never meant to fit into that world. You came here to help build a new one. A reality where truth, frequency, love, and consciousness are the foundation. You came here not to blend in, but to stand as a quiet revolution. Not loud, not angry, not forceful, but grounded, unshakable, magnetic. And this shift in energy doesn't just change you, it begins to change everything around you. Your relationships evolve. Some people fall away without warning. Some just fade. Some reject you entirely. And it hurts. Until you realize it's not rejection. It's alignment. The frequency you now carry can't be in the same space as those who aren't ready to see themselves. It's not personal. It's energetic. And the ones who are meant to walk with you on this next part of the journey. They arrive, silently, effortlessly. They speak the same soul language. They feel familiar, even if you just met. And for the first time in a long time, you begin to feel understood. Not because you explained yourself, but because you finally stopped diluting yourself. This is what happens when a chosen one steps into their truth. Life begins to reflect it. You no longer chase, you attract. You no longer beg, you embody. You no longer seek permission. You give yourself the authority to live fully aligned with your divine design. And the most beautiful part? You realize that everything you were searching for outside, belonging, meaning, purpose, was always inside you. Waiting, calling, whispering. And now you've answered. But something even deeper begins to unfold. You stop viewing life as a problem to solve and begin seeing it as a frequency to tune. You stop trying to change everyone else and start refining your own field. You become intentional with every word, every thought, every movement. You begin to walk differently, not because of ego, but because of alignment. You are grounded, clear, and guided, not by fear or doubt, but by a quiet, powerful knowing. You're not chasing destiny, you're becoming it. And this is when the final shift occurs. The moment you realize you are not just here to understand life, you are here to shape it, to participate in creation, to walk as a bridge between the unseen and the seen, between possibility and manifestation. You stop looking for a purpose and realize you are the purpose. Your very being, your energy, your choices. They ripple out into the field, affecting far more than you can see. You are no longer someone waiting for signs. You are the sign. You are no longer someone hoping to be chosen. You chose this. You said yes to the mission long before you were born. And now, you're remembering. And with that remembrance comes a sense of responsibility. A deep, sacred responsibility to live in truth, to protect your energy, to speak when guided, and remain silent when not, to create with clarity, to love with depth, to exist with presence. And that presence doesn't need applause. It doesn't need credit. It simply is. It moves through the world like a soft fire, warming, illuminating, and quietly transforming everything it touches. This is the final mark. Not something given, but something realized. The realization that you are a creator, not metaphorically, literally. Your thoughts, your feelings, your alignment, they are co-creating your experience moment by moment. You are not passive. You are not powerless. You are a living frequency. And everything around you responds to what you carry. Your only job now is to stay aligned. Not perfect, aligned. Because when you're aligned, you're guided. When you're guided, you're in flow. And when you're in flow, life becomes a conversation with the divine. This is where the path of the chosen one leads, not to fame, not to fortune, not to control, but to embodiment, to presence, to a quiet but unstoppable influence. You're not here to shout, you're here to radiate, and your radiance will draw exactly what's meant for you. Not because you chased it, but because you became the version of yourself that naturally receives it. And so now, the journey continues. But from a different place. From the inside out. From awareness. From intention. You're not who you used to be. And that's the point. You've been transformed, refined, recalibrated, and the world will feel that. Some will be drawn to it. Others will resist. But none of it will shake you anymore. Because you're no longer seeking. You're remembering. You're no longer surviving. You're creating. And if your soul has been nodding this whole time, if something deep inside you feels seen, recognized, and awakened, then you already know. You're not becoming a chosen one. You've always been one. And now, it's simply time to live like it.